Archangel Michael says, "Beloved soul, when you hear the words, 'Your son is crying alone,' let your heart soften rather than panic. These words are not meant to create fear, they are meant to awaken awareness. Sometimes tears are not loud. Sometimes they are not visible. Sometimes they are not even physical. Sometimes they are hidden behind silence, behind independence, behind the quiet effort of trying to appear strong. And when life becomes busy, responsibilities increase, and conversations become shorter, emotional spaces can quietly form between two hearts that love each other deeply. Beloved soul, the bond between a parent and a son is layered, complex, evolving. When he was younger, his needs were obvious. He reached for your hand. He asked questions openly. He depended on your guidance without hesitation. But as years pass, needs become more subtle. Questions become internal. Vulnerability becomes guarded. And sometimes strength becomes a mask. This is not rebellion. It is growth. But growth does not eliminate the need for connection. It only changes the form in which connection must be offered. Archangel Michael says, there are moments in every relationship when attention slowly shifts elsewhere. Work demands focus. Responsibilities multiply. Stress occupies the mind. And in those moments, love remains present but attention weakens. When attention weakens, small misunderstandings accumulate. Not because anyone intended harm, but because presence became divided. Emotional distance rarely forms in one dramatic event. It forms through gradual distraction. Beloved soul, helping him now does not mean rushing in with solutions. It does not mean confronting him with urgency. It means pausing long enough to notice the subtle signs. Is he speaking less? Is he avoiding certain topics? Is his tone different? Has laughter become rarer? These are not accusations, they are invitations to observe gently. Archangel Michael says, sometimes sons carry burdens they believe they must solve alone. They do not want to disappoint. They do not want to appear weak. They do not want to worry you. And so they internalize confusion, pressure, fear, or uncertainty. The world teaches them to endure quietly. But endurance without support becomes isolation. That is why presence matters. Beloved soul, think about the last meaningful conversation you shared. Not about achievements. Not about responsibilities. But about feelings. About uncertainty. About dreams. Emotional intimacy requires space. It requires listening without interrupting. It requires asking without judging. It requires creating safety before offering guidance. Archangel Michael says, you are not being told that you failed. You are being reminded that connection requires renewal. Relationships are living things. They require maintenance. They require attention. They require humility. When humility leads conversation, walls soften. Beloved soul, sometimes the most powerful words you can offer are simple, I am here. Not as authority. Not as correction. But as support. That statement alone can dissolve silent struggles. When he knows he can speak without being immediately evaluated, he may begin to open gradually. Archangel Michael says, "This message is not about dramatic intervention. It is about consistent small moments. Sitting together without distraction. Walking together without agenda. Sharing something personal about your own past vulnerabilities. When you reveal your humanity, you create permission for his." Beloved soul, there may also be unspoken misunderstandings. Perhaps something you said once felt harsher than intended. Perhaps something he interpreted differently than you meant. Silence can amplify assumptions. Communication dissolves them. But communication requires courage from both sides. And courage often begins with the parent modeling openness. Archangel Michael says, "Do not approach this with guilt. Guilt paralyzes. Awareness empowers. You are not late." Emotional bridges can always be rebuilt when intention is sincere. And sincerity is felt immediately, even before words are fully formed. Beloved soul, imagine the strength of a bond renewed. Not just repaired, but deepened. When distance is acknowledged honestly, connection often becomes stronger than before. Because both sides recognize its value more clearly. Archangel Michael says, helping him now means creating space where he does not need to perform strength. It means reminding him, through tone and posture and patience, that he is not required to carry everything alone. That reminder is powerful. Beloved soul, the phrase, "crying alone," is symbolic of any hidden struggle. It may not involve tears. It may involve confusion. It may involve self-doubt. It may involve pressures you cannot see. But when you approach him with calm openness, you invite truth. Archangel Michael says, take a moment today to reflect quietly. Ask yourself what kind of emotional atmosphere exists between you. Is it rushed? Is it structured? Is it relaxed? Awareness sharpens perception. Perception guides reconnection. Beloved soul, you are not facing loss. You are being offered opportunity. Opportunity to strengthen a bond before distance grows further. Opportunity to model vulnerability. Opportunity to listen more than speak. Opportunity to transform silence into understanding. And when understanding grows, tears, whether visible or invisible, begin to ease. Archangel Michael says, beloved soul, sometimes the deepest cries are not expressed through tears but through silence. When a son does not know how to explain what he feels, he often chooses quiet instead of vulnerability. Not because he does not trust you, but because he does not fully understand his own emotions. Many young men are taught strength before they are taught expression. They are encouraged to solve problems before they are encouraged to share them. And so what builds inside them becomes heavy, layered, and difficult to articulate. Beloved soul, you may have noticed subtle changes. Maybe he answers questions briefly. Maybe he stays in his room longer. Maybe he smiles but avoids deeper conversations. These are not necessarily signs of rebellion or disrespect. Sometimes they are signs of confusion. Sometimes they are signs of internal pressure. and sometimes they are signs that he needs reassurance but does not want to appear dependent. Archangel Michael says, "The greatest help you can offer is not control. It is understanding." When you approach him calmly and without judgment, you create emotional safety. Safety opens doors that force never can. When he feels that his emotions will not be minimized or criticized, he becomes more willing to share. Beloved soul, think about your own younger years. There were moments when you wished someone would simply listen without immediately correcting you. Moments when you needed someone to acknowledge your fear instead of dismiss it. Those memories can guide you now. Empathy grows strongest when we remember our own vulnerability. Archangel Michael says, "Do not assume you know what he is carrying. Ask gently. Listen fully. Resist the urge to interrupt. Resist the instinct to provide solutions too quickly. Sometimes what he needs is validation before guidance." When you say, "I understand why that feels difficult," you give him permission to open up further. Beloved soul, there may also be expectations weighing on him. Academic pressures. Social comparisons. Unspoken standards. The world today moves quickly and loudly. Young minds are exposed to constant comparison. When he looks around and feels he is falling behind, he may withdraw rather than confess insecurity. In those moments, reassurance becomes powerful. Archangel Michael says, remind him that his worth is not measured by performance. Remind him that mistakes are part of growth. Remind him that he is valued beyond achievement. When identity separates from pressure, confidence stabilizes. Beloved soul, sometimes the words he cannot say are simple: "I feel lost. I feel unsure. I feel overwhelmed." But pride and fear block those admissions. You can ease that barrier by sharing your own uncertainties honestly. When you reveal that you too have struggled, you normalize vulnerability. Archangel Michael says, connection strengthens through consistent small actions. Invite him into shared experiences. Sit together without screens. Ask open-ended questions. Show interest in what matters to him. These gestures may seem ordinary, but they rebuild bridges quietly. Beloved soul, do not approach this as a crisis. Approach it as maintenance. Emotional bonds require ongoing care. When you give attention consistently, distance shrinks naturally. Archangel Michael says, remember that strength and softness are not opposites. You can be firm in values and gentle in tone. You can guide without dominating. You can support without controlling. This balance creates respect rather than resistance. Beloved soul, helping him now may also mean observing your own reactions. If he expresses frustration, respond calmly. If he expresses doubt, respond patiently. Your composure teaches emotional regulation more effectively than lectures ever could. Archangel Michael says, your presence carries more influence than you realize. When he sees stability in you, he learns stability himself. When he feels heard by you, he learns how to communicate with others. Your relationship shapes his future relationships. Beloved soul, nothing is broken beyond repair. Emotional distance can always be reduced when humility leads. Do not wait for a dramatic moment. Begin with a simple step. A conversation. A shared walk. A quiet acknowledgement. Archangel Michael says, the words he does not know how to say are waiting for a safe place to land. Be that place. Not through urgency, but through steady openness. And when he finally speaks more freely, you will understand that the tears were never about weakness. They were about needing connection. Archangel Michael says, beloved soul, every relationship has a turning point, and sometimes that turning point is not dramatic, not loud, not visible to anyone else. Sometimes it begins with a single honest moment. A pause. A softened tone. A willingness to listen without defending. Healing rarely arrives through grand gestures. It enters quietly when pride lowers and understanding rises. If there has been distance between you and your son, this is the season where it can begin to close, not through force, but through presence. Beloved soul, emotional walls do not appear overnight. They are built brick by brick through misunderstandings, unmet expectations, silent disappointments, or simply through growing independence. But just as walls are built gradually, they are softened gradually. One calm conversation weakens a brick. One patient response loosens another. One shared vulnerability removes another layer. You do not need to tear everything down at once. You need consistency. Archangel Michael says, there may have been moments when your intentions were misunderstood. Words spoken out of concern may have been heard as criticism. Advice offered with love may have felt like pressure. This is common. Communication between generations requires translation, not accusation. When you acknowledge this gently, you invite clarity. Beloved soul, try this approach. Instead of saying, "Why didn't you tell me?" say, "I wish I had noticed sooner." That small shift changes everything. It removes blame and invites openness. When your son feels that he will not be judged for past silence, he becomes less afraid of present honesty. Archangel Michael says, healing also requires patience with timing. He may not open immediately. He may test the safety of the space you create. He may share small details before deeper ones. That is not resistance, it is trust rebuilding slowly. Trust, once shaken or neglected, needs steady reassurance. Beloved soul, reflect on how powerful it would have felt in your own youth to hear, "I am proud of who you are becoming, not just what you achieve." Those words carry weight. They separate identity from performance. They remind a young heart that love is not conditional. Archangel Michael says, sometimes sons carry hidden fear of disappointing their parents. Even when that fear is unspoken, it influences behavior. If he believes he must always appear strong, he will hide weakness. If he believes he must always succeed, he will hide failure. Your reassurance can dismantle that pressure. Beloved soul, healing may also require you to release certain expectations. Not lowering standards, but adjusting assumptions. Each child has a different rhythm. Each personality navigates stress uniquely. When you allow him to grow at his pace while remaining supportive, confidence strengthens naturally. Archangel Michael says, there is also healing in shared memory. Remind him of moments when you overcame challenges together. Remind him of times when he demonstrated resilience. When he sees himself through your affirming lens, he begins to internalize strength rather than doubt. Beloved soul, do not underestimate the power of physical presence. Sitting beside him without speaking. Driving together in silence. Sharing a meal without distraction. These moments create subtle safety. And safety invites truth. Archangel Michael says, sometimes the greatest breakthrough occurs when you admit your own mistakes openly. When you say, I may not have handled that perfectly, you model humility. Humility builds respect. Respect rebuilds closeness. Beloved soul, this is not about correcting him. It is about connecting with him. Correction has its place, but connection must come first. When connection is strong, guidance is received more openly. Archangel Michael says, healing strengthens both sides. As he feels understood, you feel relief. As communication improves, tension decreases. As trust rebuilds, distance dissolves. What once felt fragile becomes firm again. Beloved soul, this is not a crisis story. It is a growth story. It is a reminder that relationships are living and can be renewed. The tears, whether visible or hidden, are not signs of failure. They are invitations to deeper understanding. And when one honest moment unfolds fully, you may discover that the distance was never as wide as it felt. Archangel Michael says, beloved soul, once honesty opens the first door of healing, the next step is rebuilding trust in a way that feels steady and lasting. Trust is not restored through one emotional conversation alone. It is rebuilt through consistent behavior, through repeated signals that safety truly exists. When your son begins to sense that your presence is no longer reactive but receptive, something softens inside him. Emotional armor begins to lower. Guarded responses become thoughtful ones. Silence transforms into gradual expression. This transformation does not happen overnight, but it does happen when intention is sustained. Beloved soul, rebuilding trust begins with predictability. When he sees that your tone remains calm even during difficult discussions, he feels less defensive. When he realizes that sharing something vulnerable does not lead to immediate criticism, he feels less afraid. Emotional safety is created through repetition. Each safe interaction strengthens confidence. Each patient response removes doubt. Over time, those small moments accumulate into renewed closeness. Archangel Michael says, it is important to understand that young hearts often test new safety gently. He may share something small first, observing how you respond. If you respond with empathy rather than correction, he will share more next time. If you interrupt or dismiss his feelings, he may retreat again. This is not manipulation. It is protection. He is protecting himself from disappointment. Your steadiness reassures him that protection is no longer necessary. Beloved soul, reconciliation also involves acknowledging the changes in both of you. He is growing. You are evolving. The relationship cannot remain in its earlier form. It must mature alongside both of you. When you treat him with respect for his emerging independence, he feels valued rather than controlled. Respect deepens trust. Trust strengthens connection. Archangel Michael says, "Do not underestimate the importance of listening without multitasking." In a world filled with distractions, focused attention feels rare and powerful. When you set aside devices and distractions, you communicate value without speaking. Presence becomes your message. And presence often says more than advice ever could. Beloved soul, rebuilding trust may also require redefining communication. Instead of leading with instruction, lead with curiosity. Ask what he thinks. Ask how he feels. Ask what he hopes for. Curiosity signals interest. Interest signals care. Care rebuilds emotional bridges. Archangel Michael says, sometimes sons struggle to express fear directly. They may show irritation instead. They may appear withdrawn instead. Beneath frustration often lies insecurity. Beneath silence often lies confusion. When you interpret behavior through compassion rather than judgment, you respond more effectively. Beloved soul, remember that reconciliation is not about proving who was right. It is about strengthening what matters most. Let go of the need to win small arguments. Focus on winning long-term closeness. When long-term closeness becomes your priority, conversations change. Naturally. Archangel Michael says, encourage his strengths openly. Speak about his character, not just his performance. When he hears consistent affirmation about his integrity, kindness, or resilience, he begins to internalize those qualities. Internal confidence reduces emotional isolation. Beloved soul, healing also includes shared experiences. Create opportunities to spend time together without agenda. Cook a meal. Take a walk. Work on a simple project side by side. Shared activity often opens conversations more naturally than formal discussions. Sometimes vulnerability flows easier when eyes are not directly locked but hands are engaged in something simple. Archangel Michael says, trust grows when both sides feel heard. Make space for his perspective, even if you disagree. Agreement is not required for understanding. Understanding requires patience. Patience builds depth. Beloved soul, you are not facing an irreparable divide. You are navigating a transition. And transitions, when handled with humility and steadiness, often lead to stronger bonds than before. The tears, visible or unseen, are not permanent states. They are signals calling for attention. Archangel Michael says, continue choosing calm presence over urgency. Continue choosing empathy over assumption. Continue choosing connection over control. These choices shape the emotional atmosphere of your home. Beloved soul, trust rebuilt slowly becomes unshakable. And once unshakable trust is established, your son no longer feels alone with his struggles. He feels supported, understood, and secure. Archangel Michael says, "Beloved soul, once trust begins to return and conversations grow deeper, the next step is not merely maintaining connection, but strengthening it in a way that will endure future challenges." Relationships are not only healed for the present moment, they are reinforced for what lies ahead. Every phase of life will test closeness differently. Childhood tests patience. Adolescence tests understanding. Adulthood tests mutual respect. If the foundation becomes strong now, the storms of tomorrow will not easily shake it. Beloved soul, long-term bonding grows when both hearts feel seen consistently, not only during emotional moments. Continue noticing the small details about his life. The interests he mentions casually. The dreams he speaks about briefly. The frustrations he expresses in passing. When you remember those details and bring them up later, he understands that you truly listen. Feeling remembered creates deep emotional security. Archangel Michael says, "Encourage independence without withdrawing support. Let him make choices. Let him learn from outcomes. But remain available as a guide. When he knows he can return without fear of harsh judgment, he explores the world with greater confidence." Security does not weaken independence, it strengthens it. Beloved soul, generational strength is built through modeling. Your reactions teach him more than your lectures. When you handle stress calmly, he observes resilience. When you admit mistakes humbly, he learns accountability. When you show kindness even under pressure, he internalizes compassion. These lessons remain with him long after individual conversations fade. Archangel Michael says, "Continue cultivating open dialogue. Ask about his goals, not only his responsibilities. Ask about his feelings, not only his tasks. Create space for dreams. When dreams are discussed openly at home, ambition grows without isolation. Isolation shrinks when vision is shared." Beloved soul, bonding also requires shared laughter. Do not let seriousness dominate every interaction. Lightness builds warmth. Warmth builds safety. Safety builds openness. A home that includes joy becomes a place where vulnerability feels natural rather than risky. Archangel Michael says, "Prepare for moments when disagreement will still occur." They will. Strong relationships are not free from conflict, they are resilient through it. Approach conflict as a chance to understand perspective rather than win control. When disagreements end with respect intact, closeness deepens rather than fractures. Beloved soul, remind him consistently that love is not dependent on perfection. When performance pressure is removed from affection, emotional stability strengthens. A son who knows he is loved beyond success carries courage into the world. Archangel Michael says, long-term bonding also involves speaking about the future together. Discuss values. Discuss character. Discuss the kind of man he hopes to become. These conversations shape identity. Identity grounded in guidance feels steady even when circumstances change. Beloved soul, do not underestimate the impact of affirming his strengths publicly as well as privately. When you acknowledge his character in front of others respectfully, confidence grows. Confidence reduces loneliness. Loneliness fades when self-worth stabilizes. Archangel Michael says, remember that connection is not maintained through intensity but through consistency. It is not the occasional emotional speech that preserves closeness, it is daily attentiveness. It is checking in. It is noticing mood shifts. It is responding gently rather than sharply. Beloved soul, you are not merely helping him through one emotional season. You are shaping the emotional climate of your family for years to come. The bond you nurture now influences how he will relate to others later. The patience you demonstrate now influences how he will respond under pressure later. Your influence stretches further than you see. Archangel Michael says, continue to choose presence over distraction, understanding over assumption, patience over reaction. These repeated choices carve a pathway of security that becomes difficult to break. Beloved soul, the tears that once symbolized distance can become reminders of growth. They can mark the moment when you chose connection intentionally rather than assuming it would sustain itself automatically. That choice changes everything. And when years pass and new challenges arise, the foundation built during this season will hold firm, because it was strengthened through humility, consistency, and unconditional love. Archangel Michael says, beloved soul, what began as a quiet reminder about emotional distance has now become something greater. It is no longer only about a moment of tears or a season of silence. It is about legacy. It is about the invisible inheritance you are shaping every single day. Long after specific conversations fade from memory, the emotional atmosphere you created will remain in his heart. The tone you used. The patience you showed. The presence you offered. These become internal anchors he carries forward into adulthood. Beloved soul, understand this deeply. Children remember how they felt more than they remember exact words. If he felt heard, he will remember safety. If he felt supported, he will remember strength. If he felt accepted, he will remember confidence. Emotional memory becomes identity. Identity becomes destiny. The way you respond during his vulnerable seasons shapes how he will respond to his own future challenges. Archangel Michael says, when you chose to listen instead of react, you shifted something powerful. When you chose to soften instead of criticize, you rewrote a pattern. When you chose presence instead of distraction, you reinforced belonging. These choices may have seemed small at the time, but they echo loudly across years. Beloved soul, there will be days when he stands strong on his own. Days when he makes decisions independently. Days when he no longer needs daily guidance. And in those moments, you will realize that the quiet investment of patience was never wasted. The stability he displays will reflect the stability he witnessed. The compassion he shows others will reflect the compassion he received. Archangel Michael says, legacy is not built through perfection. It is built through consistency. You were never required to be flawless. You were required to be willing. Willing to grow. Willing to apologize. Willing to learn. Willing to stay present even when it felt uncomfortable. That willingness builds trust that lasts beyond temporary misunderstandings. Beloved soul, the tears that once felt concerning are now part of a larger story. They were signals calling for attention, and you responded. That response matters. Many relationships drift because small signals are ignored. You chose awareness instead. That choice strengthens generational patterns in ways you may never fully see. Archangel Michael says, think ahead to a future moment when he faces hardship. Perhaps stress, disappointment, or uncertainty. In that moment, he will draw from the emotional blueprint you helped create. If that blueprint includes calm listening, respectful dialogue, and unconditional reassurance, he will navigate difficulty with greater resilience. Beloved soul, this is how cycles change. When emotional presence replaces emotional distance, when humility replaces pride, when empathy replaces assumption, the family line grows stronger. Strength is not loud dominance. It is quiet stability. Archangel Michael says, continue nurturing openness even after things feel steady. Do not wait for another emotional signal to reconnect. Maintain the habit of conversation. Maintain the habit of shared time. Maintain the habit of affirmation. Consistency transforms temporary healing into permanent growth. Beloved soul, you are not simply helping your son through one chapter. You are influencing the kind of father, partner, and friend he will one day become. The respect he shows others will mirror the respect he experienced. The patience he extends will reflect the patience he received. Archangel Michael says, and one day, perhaps years from now, he may say something simple but powerful. I always felt supported. That sentence will be your true reward. Not recognition. Not praise. But knowing that he never felt alone for long. Beloved soul, this message was never about urgency. It was about awareness. It was about recognizing that connection must be nurtured intentionally. You have that power. You always did. And now, instead of imagining him crying alone, imagine him growing strong with quiet confidence, because he knows support exists when needed. That transformation is the true miracle, not dramatic, not loud, but deeply lasting. That if you choose to build a legacy of patience, presence, and unconditional love, type Amen and continue showing up with steady strength every day.